So not to get too biblical, but the other day I asked myself, if Hawaii had 10 commandments to live by, what would they be? Well, I just returned from Diamond Head with 2 spam tablets and I'm ready to share.
Hello from Hawaii.
Now I should mention that this is supposed to be taken lightly, but if I did miss anything, please let me know in the comments below. Commandment number 1, thou shalt take off thy shoes in the house. I mean, I can still hear my grandparents now. Hey, you better take off the slippers in the house. When you enter someone's home in Hawaii, shoes, slippers always come off. I think this came from Japan, and this is an absolute non-negotiable. I mean, when I was on the mainland, sure, I'd walk in the house with my shoes, but whenever I'd come back here and when I eventually moved back to Hawaii, shoes are always off. Of course, unless you like vacuum the whole house, like my mom used to say. Commandment number 2, thou shalt not touch any wildlife. Let me tell you a common story. Visitor comes to Hawaii. Visitor thinks it's a good idea to touch some kind of animal. Visitor also thinks it's a good idea to videotape or video record themselves doing that and share that on social media. Enraged social media comments ensue, typically by locals who somehow turn the conversation to accountability into how visitors are ruining Hawaii. Visitor claims they didn't know about the rules and then they eventually leave. Now, I really don't understand people's fascination with touching wildlife. I mean, some of these animals, they're dangerous. I mean, people want to touch monk seals and turtles, and they're beautiful to look at from a distance, but there's no need to touch. And I know it's not just visitors. Sometimes we got locals too who touch things they're not supposed to, but at the end of the day, all this stuff, it's just for looking. Don't need touch. Commandment number 3, thou shalt pick up after oneself. Hawaii is kind of a dirty place. I mean, it's one of the reasons why when people go to Japan, local people, they're always praising how clean it is, because compared to Japan, we got a lot of rubbish around. I mean, really, we got a lot of issues when it comes to picking up trash and rubbish. Even with the plastic bag ban and the hi-fi recycling thing, we got plenty of trash. And it's pretty simple. If everyone just picked up after themselves, it wouldn't be a problem. I remember when I was in elementary school, when we would go on field trips, before we could board the bus, my teacher would say, okay, everybody, you gotta pick up 5 pieces of rubbish. And of course, me being the sly guy that I was, I would just pick up 1 piece of rubbish and just rip it up into 5 pieces, and that was my toll to get onto the bus. I mean, sorry, Mrs. Matsumoto, but you know, you got 30 kids picking up rubbish, it's kind of hard to find 5 pieces. So yes, please pick up after yourself. And don't assume somebody else is just gonna pick it up, even if that's their job. As a former custodian, bruh, I'm not your maid. Commandment number 4, thou shalt let others merge before thee. Traffic in Hawaii can be horrendous. It can be mind-numbing. What would ordinarily be a 30-minute commute slowly transforms into a 45-minute commute, which then transforms into an hour and 15-minute commute. And then you get home and, oh, bruh, you tired. But in all the chaos, please let others merge in front of you. I mean, we're an island. Where are you gonna go? I mean, really, you're gonna try to save 1 minute by speeding up and blocking someone so they can't merge in front of you? Come on. And yeah, sure, their safety check may be expired or their tint may be 2 shades too dark, but just let them in. Hey, but don't take advantage of this, you know. Merging means every other, like a zipper, you know. 1 car from our lane, 1 car from your lane, 1 car from our lane, 1 car from your lane. Don't try cut. Commandment number 5, thou shalt share and be generous. Generosity and sharing, to me, are 2 of the big pillars of aloha. And I believe culturally sharing is encouraged here. I mean, talking about pre-Amazon.com days, resources are just limited when it comes to living in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So if you got extra, it's okay to share with others who really need it. It was like my wife the other day. We were swimming down at Magic Island and this other mom approached her and said, oh, you know, nice hat, where did you get it? I'd like to buy one. And my wife explained, oh, you know, she got it in Japan, but it's pretty easy to find. And in this discussion between these two moms, between my wife and this other mom, my wife just gave her the hat. She said, no worries, here, just take them. And I think the other mom was pretty shocked about that generosity. And watching all of this, I can say that I was very proud of my wife. And of course, this extends to meals. It's okay to treat people to lunch every now and then. And when there's a potluck, just bring a little bit extra. And no one keeps score, but people really appreciate it. Oh no, as the sun comes up, I'm gonna try to get into the shade. Commandment number 6, thou shalt honor Kupuna and Keiki. There's the older generation and there's the younger generation here in Hawaii. And the rest of us are all kind of keeping it together. I mean, the fact is we were all young once and we will most likely all be old later. And so I think it's important to remember to respect and to honor where we came from and where we're gonna be. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that I didn't quite understand the keiki part until I had kids, because raising kids is kind of hard. I mean, you need grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunties. Sometimes it's not even enough to just raise one kid, let alone 2 or 3 kids. And now that my parents are getting older, I'm seeing how important it is to take care of them, to respect them, to honor them, and even something as simple as just listening to them. It goes a long way. And by the way, I purposely did not say thy kupuna or thy keiki, because really honoring and respecting should go beyond just our own families. We're all one big ohana anyway. Commandment number 7, thou shalt have no other places before me. This was a tricky one to talk about, but basically, in Hawaii, we do things a certain way. And sure, I know other places do things a certain way too, but when you're living here, kind of important to understand the culture and just how we do things here in Hawaii. Now, I'm not saying that everything we do here in Hawaii is perfect. We have lots of room for improvement. But oftentimes people will come here and with good intentions, they'll say, well, where I'm from, we never used to do it like that. Or how come we don't do it this way? That's where we used to do it where I'm from. And just some friendly advice that's almost an automatic no. And locals, they're probably gonna shut you out. And commandment number 8, thou shalt not change things too fast. One of the charming things about Hawaii is that it doesn't really change. In a lot of ways, it's timeless, but the changes that do end up occurring, they're very slow. So it's important if you're talking about change, not push it too hard, because people are gonna just view you as some kind of pushy outsider. Or worse yet, if you're a local who wants to try and change things, people are just gonna say, well, that's not how we used to do it, because there's a lot of resistance to change here in Hawaii, for better or for worse. And even with good intentions, sometimes it's hard to get around that. I mean, do you have any idea how long it took for them to build H3? And let's not even talk about the rail. So change does occur here in Hawaii, but oftentimes it's very slow and it's worth practicing some patience. I know it can be extremely frustrating as you're waiting for change, but if you hang out here long enough and you get involved and you try to introduce new ideas in respectful ways, eventually I think people will warm up to it. Either that or you get plenty money and you can just do whatever you like. Commandment number 9, thou shalt not steal lava rocks. Now, I'm sure we've all heard the story about Madame Pele, and if you take a rock, especially from Big Island, you're gonna be cursed. Now, while officially there are no chants or songs that make the claim that Pele will curse you if you take a rock, at least according to the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, still, it's not a good idea to take things that don't belong to you. All right, let me just pause here. Side story, may get in a little bit trouble, but I figure why not share. So back in high school, during a practice round at Waikoloa on the Big Island, I decided to test my luck and I took a rock. I know, everyone gasps. I took a rock and I brought it back to Oahu. Now I know that was wrong and I know I shouldn't have done that, but I wanted to test and just see. I mean, I was one young kid. And of course, nothing happened. And back during the first round of the golf tournament that I was playing in, I shot really good. I was in the second to the last group and I was in striking distance of the leaders. And then round number 2 came and I shot the worst round of golf I've ever played in my life. It was quite embarrassing. Now, was that Pele and was I cursed? I don't really think so. But that was a serious case of bachi, and I returned the rock soonly thereafter. So just in general, I wouldn't test that. Besides, I think the national park's getting kind of tired of people shipping them lava rocks because they feel guilty later. And commandment number 10 is remember the traditions and holidays and to keep them holy. Okay, maybe not holy, but it's important to remember those traditions and holidays that we do have in Hawaii, even if they're the same every single year. I mean, Hawaii has a lot of unique traditions and celebrations that I don't think other places in the world have or make that big a deal out of. I mean, you got Keiki's first birthday, you got high school graduations, you got wedding receptions, you got New Year's Eve. And even though they tend to be repetitive and kind of the same every single year, I think it's important to celebrate these traditions because we're passing them on to the next generations. I mean, for us, birthdays were pretty big in my family, and how we celebrated birthdays was dobash cake from Zippy's and Chinese food from Quinoa in Kaneohe. And all these years later, that's how we're still celebrating birthdays. And I hope that one day my kids can celebrate birthdays just like that. By the way, Quinoa restaurant in Kaneohe, oh man, it's just the best here on Oahu. Sorry, but it's the best Chinese restaurant. And so yes, once you've seen the lantern floating here, or the Christmas lights at Honolulu Hale, or the parades, or the fireworks show, yeah, it's kind of all the same every single time, and it's not really going to change. But that's really not the point. The point is just to celebrate them and continue that celebration so that future generations can get the opportunity to celebrate it as well. Now, obviously, there are more so-called commandments to living here in Hawaii. These are just some that I thought about. And like other places, there are a lot of unwritten rules or commandments to living in that particular community. And it's these nuances that make that place special and unique. And for any outsiders looking in, it's important to at least recognize and acknowledge that these are some of the things that we just do here in Hawaii, even if you don't understand it. And I think that's part of what I'm trying to do here on this YouTube channel, to open up these discussions on some of the things that you're not gonna find on travel blogs and top 10 lists. These things that in Hawaii, maybe sometimes as locals, we also take for granted in trying to explain to others, because that's just, right, how life is here. If you grew up here, you already know these things. But sometimes we forget that not everyone had the opportunity to grow up in Hawaii, and so they don't understand these things, or they don't see why they're so important. And as locals, I think every now and then it's good that we introspectively take a look at life here in Hawaii. Because as someone who lived away from Hawaii for a while, let me just say, we shouldn't take it for granted. So thanks for watching, and aloha.